The owner of the company came to my house to deliver my new machine. So he's in our house setting up the machine and
through the window
of our house now because these things are so big.
So
but
big, yeah.
He's in our house setting it up, and we're talking to him, and I'm like just inspired. He owns this machine company, and he flew out here to set this up in my house, and he's talking to us, and he's like, "Why are you still working in corporate America?" And
yeah, so I said, well, I need the benefits, I need the insurance, I need the 401k, all that kind of stuff. And he looked at both of us and said, but do you?
Welcome back to the Beyond Net Worth podcast. I'm Callan Webster.
And I'm Ben Goffredson.
I'm really excited about today's podcast today. Ben, who do we have with us?
We got Natalia and Brad Bonner.
Awesome. So I think we're going to go in with a bio real quick, just for our listeners to get to know you just on a high-level overview, and then we'll jump right in.
Natalia Bonner has enjoyed piecing quilt tops for more than 20 years. She learned how to quilt on her conventional home machine. She felt good about it, but decided that if she really wanted to take her quilting to the next level, she needed to invest in a long arm machine. In 2007, when she was pregnant with her daughter, she got this crazy idea to quit her job as a dental assistant and become a long arm quilter. Whether it's working on an intense show quilt or a simple baby quilt, Natalia has become a real quilting addict. She teaches at quilt guilds and shows, including Road to California and QuiltCon East, and has filmed TV shows with Nancy Zeman and Jody Davis. She's won numerous awards for her work and has been featured on Moda Bake Shop, in Quiltmaker Magazine, and American Patchwork and Quilting Magazine. Also has the #1 book on Amazon for a year on quilting. So
it's amazing.
Thanks for being on today, guys.
I'm
happy
excited.
to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're glad to have both of you here today. Ben knows you. You guys do CrossFit together. I haven't had the opportunity to get to know you too well. And I know we had that call, and I'm really excited to get to know more and to hear your story. So I want to turn time over to you guys, and maybe just what's your can we get your story? What's your guys' story?
Where do we start?
A long time ago, that's for sure.
We can start with clear back in the beginning. We can even start with clear back when we met. We have known each other for a really, really long time. And Brad would say that the Natalia he knows today is a completely different person from the 18-year-old he met.
Yes, absolutely.
Clear back then.
Completely different.
And I think partially why we even like to do stuff like this together is because he's always been my cheerleader. I was the most scared of my own shadow person when we met, and then to travel the world like I have and be on TV and all these other things really is because he was my cheerleader, pushing me the whole time.
A cheerleader had no idea what was going on. That's the truth. I had with quilting and sewing and all that was new to me, growing up with brothers. And then I met her.
But you believed in her.
She just had it. You could tell she had a gift, and I can cheer someone on for sure. So,
yeah, we can. So our quilting journey started when I was pregnant. I had a regular job, and I was driving to work. I drove an hour to and from every single day, and I just kept telling him, I'm not working when I have a baby. I don't know what I'm going to do because I can't sit still, but I'm not going to work. And he was like, okay, whatever. He had a great job. He made enough money. I didn't need to work. He had sold a house and had some money in the bank. And I was driving home from work on this one random Thursday afternoon. And I was 8 months pregnant. And I'm like, call him up and tell him, so I have this crazy idea. I'm going to buy this machine that costs more than a car. And I'm going to quit working and just have this hobby. Really, it was going to be a hobby, just something for me to do, maybe make a little bit of money, but never did I expect it would become a career. It was just something to keep me busy.
And to make a little extra money on the side, and that was it.
Yeah.
So what led up to that? I'm gonna buy I'm gonna buy this machine. And did you see it on TV or like what was like? How'd you find that?
Right, like what are these things?
Yeah, how did you find it?
So I had made quilts, and the part of quilting that I do is it's a really niche part of quilting, and a lot of people have never even heard of the actual thing that I do. So you make a quilt, and usually someone will you'll take it to this quilter, and they'll finish it for you. It's the stitching that holds it all together. And I just had back up. So I went to the fabric store and bought all the stuff to make for our daughter's nursery. And I called up the lady that had usually quilted for me, and she's like, well, I can't do it before your baby's born. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So this all happens on a Thursday. That night, I go home, look it up on the computer, and I had heard that this brand was a really good brand. I'd never actually even seen the machine, though, because my mom would always take my quilts for me that I made, back in high school or whatever. So I'd never even seen one. I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, it's a good brand. And if I'm going to spend that much money, I want to know that there's a dealer in case something breaks.
Yeah.
So we lived in Pleasant Grove. There was a dealer like 30 minutes away. So I call Brad and I'm like, okay, it's this much money.
And
what
my
if
jaw hit the floor.
For your daughter's baby blanket.
Yeah, cost that much money for a blanket? You gotta be kidding. No.
Or college education.
Yeah,
which one?
Either one. So that all happened on Thursday. On Saturday, I went to the dealer. I walked in there. I was 25 years old. I'm pretty sure they thought I was crazy because 25-year-olds, at least 15 years ago, did not buy these machines. So I walk in there and I'm like, I know I want that machine. I had measured my room. So the machines are huge. Like mine is on a 10-foot table right now, and it's about 4 feet wide. So it's this huge thing. But we lived in a condo. So I figured out all the details that our condo had an extra bedroom, and it was only 10 feet from the door to the inside of the closet door. But you have to walk around the machine. So I'm like, if we take off the closet doors and we come up over the top, we could totally fit this machine in our condo.
Through the balcony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
we had to use a
over.
crane to get it through.
Really?
Well, we'd have to use a crane. We had people in the back of
Lifting
trucks
it up.
standing on things.
Basically,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have this crazy idea. I walk in there, and they're like, do you want to try it out? Can we sell you on this? And I'm like, no, just here's my money. And that was it. They delivered it 4 weeks later, set it up in our house, and I think I cried every single night after that. Mostly,
Buyer's remorse?
I don't know if it was buyer's remorse, just kind of shock. Like, what did I do? I never regretted it because I had fun every time I played on it, but kind of that was a big chunk of his savings that I just
That's a big
spent.
sewing machine.
I was gonna ask, how'd you feel making that decision? Okay, yeah, go buy it.
It was just one of those things okay. I didn't really think, show me first and, give me your business plan. I just said, well, if that's what you want, let's go get it. But looking back on it now,
such a keeper.
best investment we ever made by far. Best investment ever.
So really, ever since I got it, I was just determined. Every day, I'm going to figure out how to use this. I didn't even have a plan. It wasn't to make money or anything. It was just, I'm not going to just let this thing sit in there. So I just used it every day, and I just kept using it. And I guess I got better at it. I don't know.
Did. She
Yeah.
did.
I guess.
And that's the other thing about her that a lot of people don't know, and I shared this with Ben the other day, is she's self-taught. She taught herself how to do it. And when you watch her do it, the third day I started working with her, kind of jumping ahead, but I remember stopping the video and going, she's the Michael Jordan of machine quilting. She is amazing. She can make something pop out using thread and fabric, and it's an art form.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Well, I noticed two things. So first of all, you had that passion early on. I want to dive into that. Brad believed in your passion, which I think is worth touching on, and also your motivation too. Tell us a little bit about kind of what were some of the early things in your life that motivated you, some experiences you had that made you want to push as hard as you did.
So I'll tell you a couple things. I've always been really creative and really kind of dorky creative, if that's what you want to call it. So when I was a little kid, I had this huge bedroom, and my sister and I shared, but my bed was a little bit closer to the light switch. So I was always responsible for turning off the light. And I hated it because I was always scared of everything. So I like would figure out ways to make strings go like up, over, and come down so that I could turn the light switch off and on from these strings in my bed. So I've always just been like this nerdy, creative type person. But then I always struggled learning. I never was like the typical read a book. Even as a young child, I had to go to lots of special tutoring, and I just really, really struggled. So then I grew up and got to high school, and I struggled just because I was bored out of my mind. I had a full-time job in high school. It was a great job, like an adult job, and I just wouldn't go to school. So when I was a senior in high school, my principal called me in, and she didn't like me because I did not go to school. And I was failing pretty much every class. I joke around and tell people now when they're like, where'd you go to high school? I'm like, well, I graduated from BYU Packet High School because I could go and just test out of all of my classes. So that was kind of my thing. But she pulled me in her office and she's like, you know that you're never going to amount to anything in life. You're just going to end up barefoot and pregnant. And now I laugh because I hate to wear shoes, and, you know, I have spent a lot of time pregnant. But really, those little things like that just made me be like, I am worth something. I know I'm worth something. I'm not just this lazy bum. I'm just doing things my own way. So it's kind of what always motivated me. When I wrote my first book, still haven't done it, but I always said I was going to mail her a copy and say, I might be barefoot and pregnant, but I wrote a few books.
You have to at some point.
I haven't had the guts. 10 years later, I'm like, don't do it, but maybe I will.
I love that part because there's so much right now in society on like school and like doing the path a certain way, and it does hurt a little bit of creativity, and people learn at different paces.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
in different ways, and you don't have to do things all one way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
We say that same thing about business, that every business doesn't have to run exactly the same way. If you guys came in and looked at the way we run a business, you'd be like, how does this work? But it works for us, and we figured out how to do it, and usually it's just me staying out of her way. But when she gets on her creative moments, me and the two kids just know, stay out of her way. Let's see what she can do here. And that's what we call them booms at our house. Here comes a boom. This can be life changing. So you have to love those things.
Yeah. So go ahead. So from getting the machine to your condo to where you are today, and can make you just fill in the gap.
What happened?
Yeah. How'd you get there?
It's a lot of booms.
Yeah, yes. A lot of little things happened. So when I bought that machine, it was, 15 years ago. I don't even know what year that was, but blogging was the thing. Mommy bloggers, just blogging. Everybody was doing it and whatever. So I started doing it, not really being a mommy blogger, but more just to share what I was doing. I had grandma and cousins, and we would sew things and send them to each other. So it was a way just to be like, look what I sewed. And then I would quilt it and just post pictures on there like, oh, look what I quilted. Totally innocent. I remember this one day calling him at work, and I was like, because I could see all the stats, the people were looking, and I'm like, someone from New Zealand is looking at my stuff, and this is so creepy. Like, should I quit doing this? Because, that was even when the internet was this new kind of uncharted territory for a lot of us, and it freaked me out. And he's like, no, it's fine. You're not, like, I'm not posting pictures of my kids on there. It's a quilt. I'm showing my art. So I just started blogging and kind of just showing stuff on there. So this one day I got an email from this girl. So there's actually two different emails. I got this one email, and it was this girl that was very well known in the industry. And she ripped me up one side and down the other, telling me pretty much how awful I was. And it was a pretty awful moment. It was one of those moments where I was selling the machine and I was quitting life and everything else because it just destroyed me. And I think that I even did kind of stop for a little while blogging and everything because it hurt me so bad. So then during that time, I finally got, my feet back under me, and I started blogging again and started sharing. And then I got another email. I'm like, oh, great. So this time, I can tell who it's from. It's from a book publishing company. I'm like, great, what's happening now? The subject of the email is enough is enough. So you can only imagine after the first one, I'm like, I'm not reading this email. I can't handle this. I can't deal with it. It's awful. So I open it up, and Suzanne Woods is the lady that emailed me, and she's like, enough is enough. I watch what you do. I watch what you share. You need to write a book. So the story I told you a minute ago, I don't even know if I actually graduated from high school. How am I going to write a book? And if you write a book, in my nature, you almost have to learn a new language because you have to write it in a whole different format. So
Wow.
It was a pretty scary moment for me. It took a long time for me to even respond to them, but I finally did. I think it took me close to 2 years to write that first book, about 3 years by the time it was finally published, but it was published, and like you said, within that first year, it became the #1 bestseller on Amazon. So that was a pretty cool moment. It still is pretty cool and surreal. We joke all the time. It came out 10 years ago, and we go to Barnes & Noble. My kids go there. Every time our daughter goes to the mall, we go to Barnes & Noble and rearrange the books and take pictures in there, because still it's like, I really wrote a book. And then I wrote a whole bunch more books, and I just kept creating. But the book it's called Beginner's Guide to Free Motion Quilting, and I wrote it from someone like me, my level, that what do you wish you would have known? And it has a lot of pictures, and I walk you step by step through my process. So,
Boom.
Boom.
It's the first boom.
Yep.
that was probably the
definitely
first.
the very first boom.
That's still the book that kind of springboarded everything, right?
Yeah, it really did.
Oh,
So after that, a lot of traveling. A lot of people wanted me to teach in person after that, and I've taught in 44 states now, and gone on quilting cruises, all sorts of experiences that I never could have even comprehended could happen in my life.
We've been to places that we would never have thought to go, and that's been, looking back, that was the fun stuff, seeing a lot of places that we thought we'd never see.
Yeah.
Where were you at? How many with your kids and your family when you got that email to write a book? Did you have your kid, a 2-year-old, 2 kids?
So
one?
we had one. I submitted everything, and then 9 months later, pretty much to the day, we had another one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So he's 10, and we have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old now, and started it all when she was born, and he kind of started the next wave, I guess.
Yeah, he did.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about your kids, because one thing I think is really important is for all the mom entrepreneurs out there. What would you say to a mom who maybe doubts herself, doesn't know where to start, because I just think that's so important that you are a voice for them too.
Honestly, it's scary. It's scary to put yourself out there. It's the weirdest thing to put yourself out there and be judged, and a lot of times I still feel like I deal with imposter syndrome. Like, I've done all this great stuff and I've done all these things and we provide a great life for our families, but it still is like, is this real? Am I really making this happen? Just keep with it. There's a lot of things that I've done and I've tried and they've failed and they didn't work. But then every time something sticks, it's awesome. And the reward, you just have to keep working towards those rewards, and there will be lots of times that you'll cry, and but it's worth it. Just for us, a huge thing, talking about our kids, is being there for our kids. Brad and I were talking about this on the way up here, that we were both raised in traditional corporate America type families, and our parents couldn't be there for a lot of things because they were at work, or, they just couldn't be there. And that was always super important for me, is that I'm going to be there for my kid. And when I started traveling a lot, I started missing a lot of stuff for my kids, which also created another shift in my career. So, yeah.
Yeah, you still travel a lot, but just as observation, you compartmentalize it pretty impressively. Because you're at I know your kids do swim and martial arts, if I'm not mistaken. And
right.
So, I follow you guys, I watch you guys, and that's, your whole world revolves around those kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people have the misconception that, well, if I start a big business, yeah, it's hard work. You're going to have to work harder than the next person, but eventually your freedom is going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's going to enable you to have that life that you really want. That's a big motivator for you, and I think that's important for people to see.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see the late nights in the hot garage at midnight, filling orders, but we don't miss anything. We do prioritize, like you say, we prioritize it, and we're always going to be there.
And even feeding on that, though, there have been events or different things that we've gone to. Halloween for me, I never want to miss Halloween with my kids. I think it's better than Christmas. And I had to miss Halloween one year because there was an opportunity, and I still look back on it and I'm like, the amount of money that was brought in because of that event is still not worth missing that day with my kids. And that's not how it is for everybody, but for me, I only have 18 years of this, and
Halloween, and she missed the first day of school once, and she was like, I'm done with that. I'm not
No
doing
more.
that ever again.
Well, you can't put a price tag on those things,
No,
right?
can't.
You only get so
Those
many
are-
first days of school.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have her home more. She gets to choose where she goes now, so it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's a little different.
You talked about making the switch. So were you traveling so much, and then you said, okay, I need to do something a little bit different so I can have more time at home? What was
Yeah,
that like?
so I was on the road a lot, probably 2 weeks out of the month. I was on the road teaching at different events, and this is when I was traveling, and it was cool. I tell everybody I've been to all these states and I've done all these things, but I can't tell you what every state looks like. I can tell you what every airport looks like, and I can tell you funny stories about the airports, and I can tell you about all the convention centers and the basements of all the convention centers. But it's not as glamorous as you think. There's a lot of lonely times sitting in those hotel rooms. And 3 years ago, I was sick of it. It would turn into fights because I would come home and I was on the road and I expected my house to be spick and span. I wanted
it
those
was
perfect.
usually.
If there was like not a perfect vacuum line in the carpet, I would be mad because I was starting to become resentful that they got to be at home and I'm out here sitting in a hotel room. So he was working in corporate America, and we kind of just sat down and, well, should we back up just a second and tell
Yeah.
the story about
Yeah.
Oh, yes. This is actually...
So I
very
had
good.
the opportunity. So I have this big machine, and I had the opportunity to become sponsored by the machine company. So Gamel is my company now.
Nice.
And the owner of the company came to my house to deliver my new machine. So he's in our house setting up the machine and
Through the window.
through the window of our house now because these things are so
They're
big.
so
But
big, yeah.
he's in our house setting it up, and we're talking to him, and I'm like just inspired. He owns this machine company, and he flew out here to set this up in my house, and he's talking to us, and he's like, "Why are you still working in corporate America?" And
Yeah, so I said, well, I need the benefits, I need the insurance, I need the 401k,
security.
all that kind of stuff. And he looked at both of us and said, but do you? And that we just looked at each other and thought, do we? We can take care of that our own by ourselves, to
Right.
figure that out. We don't need corporate America to have that stuff. And that changed everything from that moment on.
that happened in February, and then May, right? May, he left corporate America. We didn't really know what we were going to do. But at that point also, I had made the determining factor I wasn't going to travel as much. And if I was, they were going to be to places I wanted to travel, and I was going to take my family with me. So that's what we did. And I got this crazy idea that, we're just going to make a video. I've created these rulers in the meantime because I want to teach people how to use their machines even more. So I created these rulers. I'm like, we're just going to make 365 videos. We're going to show people every day for a year how to use this tool.
Wow.
They'll have no reasons or no excuses why I haven't showed them how to use this tool. So we're like, at least we'll have something to do every day for a year. Little did we know that during that year, Corona would hit and the world would shut down. Every show would end and everybody would be back at home. And that was pretty life-changing for us because we had already made the transition to moving all of my classes to online. My brother was a college student that got kicked out of college. Everybody got kicked out. He had nowhere to live, so he moved in with us and
Oh, wow.
kind of took it over. During that time, we started self-publishing books, and it really just rocked our world, but in a really good way.
boom.
That's another big boom.
That was a big boom. It
That
really
was.
was. It was because I was like, what am I going to do for you every day? And then she just popped up out of bed. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I got an idea.
I got stuff for you.
I'll create
but that was
work.
great. That was great. Like, give me something to do so I can help you. And then, that turned into that. And it was great. It was great.
Was it really hard for you to quit your job?
Was it really hard for me?
Yeah.
No, because I hated my job. But to answer your question, yes, because I was scared to death. Like, what am I gonna do? This is scary. Like, we still need to make our mortgage, pay our vehicles, all that kind of stuff. So to answer your question, yes and no. I didn't love to make that phone call and say I'm done, I'm out. But it was scary. It was, and like that's what we'd had a conversation. Like, you need to give me something to do, or we need to figure out something I can do to make sure this is gonna work. And looking back on it now, should have quit earlier.
That's usually the case.
Yes. You hear that a lot when people say, I wish I would have done it earlier.
It's scary.
It was probably the scariest thing I've ever done. I know that.
Well, it's easy to see from an outside perspective, right? Like that guy, he came in your house and he picked it up. Like,
Oh, yeah.
He was basically, from experience, he's like, okay, I know you have to be at this point, so this is an overdue move for you to step out
Right.
and be a part of it, right?
And use that fear to work through it and I got to make sure this works. So it's not going to be me the reason it's going to fail,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I looked at it anyway. But it was scary. Scary, scary.
That's amazing. Maybe speak to Brad's role as kind of an enabler, because I feel like, we're not
always your enabler.
You guys, I see you guys as a power couple. I know this is not like a marriage podcast; it's a business podcast. But I feel like that has got to be something through the whole way that's been monumental for you.
Absolutely. Like, if he didn't support what I do, like, obviously has no idea. You've tried it, maybe.
Yeah, I've tried it. I don't want to try it again.
But more just encouraging me and letting me be creative and letting me go with my crazy ideas and not holding me back when these crazy things happen, and like, is huge, really. And half the time he has to be the mom. He does all the laundry so that I can be this creative freak all the time. And he does a lot of the cooking and a lot of the typical mom roles. So
We're definitely not the typical couple, that's for sure. We definitely feed off of each other, and we have our fights just like anyone else, but we know how to get through them. And like I said, I'd love to see her with her creativity and just say, you go, just go. There's nothing more sexy than a girl with confidence.
Love it. Well, and you can kind of change the roles, right? So it doesn't have to be, okay, you're going to do the cooking and cleaning and the laundry. Like, it doesn't even have to be Brad necessarily, but that can be delegated.
Yeah.
And if you have a business and a passion that you really want to pursue, you can find a way without sacrificing your family life, your
Right.
work-life balance.
Right.
So
Yeah.
And that's just what we do. Even our kids now know that, if there's going to be times where we have to work late and mom's going to be in her room and the door's going to be shut, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something that stuck out to me is that first email, and I kind of relate a lot to that. And I think there's a lot of people that it's really scary to put yourself out there, like even for your blog. And then if you care a lot about what people think, or even just a little bit, I mean, like, to have anyone come at you,
Yeah.
especially someone who was influential like that, how did, like, emotionally, because you eventually came out, how did you get out of that? And did you help out with that at all? I mean, I'm just curious to know a little bit more about that experience of just that
all
trial.
the haters.
I'm going to jump in here before she talks.
Okay,
Because I used to get, before I quit my job or whatever, and I would be sitting at work, whatever, she'd text me or call, can you call me? If she got a negative comment on her on a Facebook video or a YouTube or whatever, it would destroy her.
Yeah.
It's hard. You have to kind of ignore the noise. You have to ignore that stuff because they're going to be there. They're going to be there. She could have 100 positive things, but that one negative one would stand out to her, and it would just destroy her confidence and be like, you've got to ignore that one. You just have to.
Yeah. And still, to this day, I still get, today I had a weird one. Someone made a weird comment about something, and I still do let them get to me. One huge thing that has impacted all of that is Brad filters all the emails and everything now, so I don't see the majority of stuff. Not that I get a ton of hate, but just like one thing can ruin so much, so he filters.
Yeah, I do that.
That's a
A
good
lot of
strategy.
things.
Just
Yeah.
like don't even look at them.
Yeah.
Just ignore them.
Yeah. And they used to make me mad, but now I'm just kind of like roll my
course.
eyes and go, no, I'm not going to let that one get to her. No way.
Yeah.
Well, you did disrupt an industry, right? So, I mean, I think a lot of people see someone doing something maybe a little bit intuitively, maybe in a different demographic, maybe younger than all the other
Yep.
quilters out there. I mean, speak a little bit about disruption and whose toes were you stepping on when you made this move?
So when I first bought my machine, I didn't know of anybody my age, and especially it wasn't something that was talked about in the world. Now, obviously, I think with social media, you see a lot more younger people doing it just because they're who are using social media a lot more now. And, you know, now people can finance these machines, and there are a lot more companies out there that are making them. So there are a lot more younger people out there in the industry that are doing this, which I think is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
But when I started out, I would go to these meetings, and they're kind of like AA almost type things, where we all bring our quilts and sit around and talk about them. And I would go in there, and nobody would be younger than my grandma. And they would look at me, and they would make me, they were nice to me, but it definitely was intimidating, and I'm sure they thought I was really crazy for the things I did. In the quilting world, the quilt police is a big thing. They're
The quilt police?
Yes. There's
It's
a
gotta be done a
women,
certain
yes,
way.
that things have to be done a certain way, and they have to be done. And I've never believed in that. It's just kind of, I guess, part of being a creative person is like, why? Why does anything have to be done a specific way? So one of the ways I do things, the quilt police always say, no, you can't do that. So I did this one quilt, and it got entered into one of the biggest shows in the country, and it ended up winning best machine quilting in the whole show. So anyways, after it's over, I read all the judges' comments and everything, and one of the biggest comments, so the thing that I don't do, it's called burying your threads. And I don't believe in that. I don't think it has to be done the way that people typically do it. But the biggest compliment was the way the threads were buried. And I'm like, I didn't bury a single thread. And it's okay, because it still looked amazing. It was just done a different way. And that's kind of always been my philosophy, that why does everything have to be done a certain way? If I'm having fun and getting great results, no matter what part of my business it is, who cares?
Absolutely.
Doesn't-
That's amazing. I think it's incredible the barriers you've broken through and what it's done for you and your business is it's paid off huge dividends.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, for someone who's wanting to make that leap of starting a business, or maybe they have one they want to improve, what's something you've learned from doing this quilting business that you feel like could translate into any entrepreneur starting a company?
My biggest advice would be do something that you're passionate about. Before we started all this, we kind of, with the career Brad was in, they encouraged a lot of people to start businesses, and we dabbled in other things that we were not passionate at all about. And it's like, oh, but you can make money doing this. And it wasn't until it was something that I was truly passionate about. For me, social media is huge. That's where, I've gained most of my business from, is by blogging, by Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those sources. But if I wasn't passionate about what I'm doing, then I can't share it, and I can't be passionate about it, and I can't be real about it. If it was about hiking, I'm not going to know what to post because I don't want to go hiking. So, it has to be something. If you're really like a creative or, wanting to start something, you really have to care about, I think, that type of industry and that type of business too. Don't just go in it to try to get rich.
Yeah, that's something I noticed, because you didn't go into this thinking it was going to be a business.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you're like, well, it could potentially, but I want to do this because I like it. And you did the blog for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think is cool, is that, it was able to develop into something like this, and it just, kind of happened. But, that's something that.
Yeah, I always tell Brad, I'm like, yeah, I do work every day, and I work really hard every day, but I don't ever feel like I'm working because it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sitting at a desk. I can decide to work at midnight, or I can decide to work during the day if I want. And just even having that flexibility, it's like, it's work, but it's fun work. So
Yeah, some people they say, okay, be careful with your passions, because if you might learn to hate that thing that you're doing because you turned it into your job. Have you ever felt that way?
there definitely have been times, and I think I've learned at this point when to take breaks, and I do a lot of work now in batches so that I can kind of step back and take breaks, but there definitely have been times of burnout, and
I think you almost have to, well, for us anyway, I almost have to force her sometimes to take a break. Because she can get going so much, then when she gets going, and she can crash for 2 or 3 days. I don't know if, that's just how she is. She's just creative and then crash, So I think those breaks are important. And I think that's why it's good to have the kids. We go and watch that, and we shut everything down. We shut it down as much as we can anyway, just to focus on that. But those are forced things that sometimes you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you build your life, and you told me once that you believe that if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. So I think, yeah, she probably does get burned out sometimes, but I think because you're so passionate about it and you build out time that you actually want to go do those things, that's going to be a big dividend.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Looking back, is there anything you would do different? Are you changed?
Oh, lots of things.
Man, how long is this
Sooner, right?
podcast?
No, there's a lot of things that I've done that were failures, and things that I have huge regrets and stuff that I've had to learn to bury really deep down inside of me because they're such big regrets. But when I can take a step back from all of it and be like, okay, but this really was the lesson I learned from that, and I did grow, and then it's okay. And I'm not so angry at myself, but the regrets really can drag you somewhere dark for a little while, and they're hard to get out of, but just keep going.
I would have moved to St. George earlier.
Yeah.
Because
That made us closer as a couple, to be honest, just because we didn't know anybody when we moved down here, and it just kind of made us, well, we got each other, we can beat each other's throat, but there's no one else we can talk to. So it really helped us as a couple to really be like, we're married and husband and wife, but we need to be best friends and coworkers and everything else too. So that's probably one of the main things I would have changed, is come down here a lot earlier.
is all your family up north?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that too before, that move away from your families so you guys can focus on each other.
It definitely helped us, and it's not that our families are driving us crazy or anything,
right.
but it forced us to, we got to figure this out, and we did.
Definitely.
We still are.
Yeah, that's incredible. So for those that might not know, your guys' core business, your products or your services, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And
Yeah.
When Callan told his coworkers we were having this famous quilter on, like, ask her all the tricks of quilting, please.
which I'm gonna ask.
You can ask.
I will.
So my core now is education. I teach people to do what I do, and I create tools based around that. So education is really my biggest thing. That's kind of what changed everything originally, writing my books, and now it's how to use the tools and classes. It's a very hands-on industry. So teaching on the road was a huge thing for a lot of years, and now it's online classes, and online education is really, so Brad's job, he ships and all the products. We have a lot of books and workbooks and tools, and he ships all of those, and
5 rulers. She's also invented 5 rulers.
Wow.
That she uses.
invented tools and ruler, all that. But he ships it all. He's over all that type of the business, kind of all the computer type logistics stuff. And I tell him I'm the creative director.
Yeah.
But I create, and I still do a little bit of quilting for clients, but it's really just because they make quilts that I would never make, and it's kind of fun to quilt for them.
Yeah. So you can buy a course online. Is it how long is it?
I looked it up. It's the Peace and Quilt Academy.
That's right.
And it's awesome.
So we actually have, so our academy is one thing. It's a subscription service that people subscribe to. They pay a monthly fee, and They get 2 new videos where I show them how to quilt a whole entire quilt. But then in addition to that, I have 25 classes that are just hands-on, more like topic specific. And I teach you, so like my book, Beginner's Guide to Free Motion Quilting, I have a class that's all around that. And I think that one's about a 3-hour long course. So they
have access to it as long as they want it. It's theirs.
Yep, online.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So education is where we are now.
Yeah.
Maybe I should ask maybe this is now a good. Okay, so my coworker, like Ben mentioned, Julie, I'm gonna give her a shout out. This is for you, Julie. She really wants to know a couple things, and one was what is the biggest quilting hack? Like, if you could come up with like one to like it's gonna save you the most time, or your favorite hack. Maybe it's just your favorite right now. What would you say?
Buy a long arm. Now they have them, so like mine is computerized too, so you can have your computer do it for you if you want a huge hack, or you can do it yourself.
I would also say to like piggyback on that, to make it a hack, make it easier, is I think she's designed the rulers to make it easier for people to make the same designs. She can do it freehand, but
yes, I have the
rulers help make the
rulers.
designs and things like that. So I would actually say that use the tools that make it easier for you.
Yeah. And so another one, she wanted to know about fabric. Okay, like where do you get your fabric? What are your favorite brands?
Oh, I get my fabric all over. My favorite brand probably is Moda. I've always just been a Moda girl. I actually designed 2 lines of fabric for them, so that was a pretty cool part of life I had.
Fabric, though, is just whatever you like.
Yeah, it really just
There's
depends.
so many options with fabric, so whatever you like. Just
has it been hard to get? Is there supply issues right now?
They're slow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she mentioned Joann's. Would you ever go buy fabric there? That was one of her questions. Would you ever
they sell
go?
my books at Joann's, so I'm not gonna knock it.
Okay, cool.
It's just a different type of fabric. My opinion is, if you're gonna spend a lot of time and a lot of money on something, you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, Julie. There's that.
Well, I got a lot of takeaways. I mean, just from going from that teenager that was told, oh, you'll never be anything, to taking the risk, quitting your job, following your passion, and basically ending up as a best-selling author with all this education and things you can do that people, like Brad was bragging, and he was saying that people come and they're like, can I pay just to watch her quilt? It's like, follow your passion, and I think that's something that we can all really learn from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's incredible the support you've given her, and to be able to do that. I think maybe another guy wouldn't have. I mean, from like the very beginning, I think there's probably guys that just like for money reasons, they would have just been like, if they like control over money, they'd be like, no, like we're not buying that.
Yeah.
So I think that's was really cool for me. And I also, on that line, something is like, just with school, it's okay. It's okay to be different, and you don't have to go to the mainstream and do it a certain way. Like, don't get sucked up in the system.
Totally.
Keep your creativity.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
what about you? What do you guys like? If there's a takeaway that you'd want our listeners to have, what would it be?
Do you have one?
I have one. When I think of one about, especially for a female,
Yeah.
don't you dare quit. Find a reason. Find your why. And there's going to be tough days. There's going to be hard nights. But don't you dare. If you're passionate about something and you have something that she has, a gift, push through it. Work through it. Don't you dare. That's why we talk about. It's just don't you dare think about quitting. You have a gift. Use it and show it to people. They don't buy the courses because they want to know how to do that. To me, they're buying her. And it's like, don't you dare.
I appreciate that a lot, because I relate a lot to you, where I feel like I would get discouraged easy, and I would stuff like that would get to me too. So that's I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Find someone to support you and sees it. You have to see it in them. And it was very easy for me to see it. But I think that's huge. You have to have the support.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, let's see mine. Don't quit. I think even just leaning on that, don't be discouraged. It's so easy, and it's so... What I do is not mainstream. My kids even joke. I posted a picture on my personal Instagram the other day about a picture of something quilting, and my daughter's like, you posted that? People are going to know that's what you do. I'm like, whatever. But you can't be afraid. You know, if you do something that's not typical, people my age, I guess not as often so. And it's okay to be different, and it's okay to pursue those passions. And don't give up, you know, when the haters come and when a lot of discouraging things happen, just keep working through it. The little rewards are so worth it. And so far, I'm glad I haven't quit.
Yeah, me too.
We're glad you haven't quit too. This has been inspirational, and I think everyone can really learn a lot and take something into their life. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we appreciate it, you guys.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for being on the Beyond Net Worth podcast.